Hey everyone, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast. And now a roundup of this week's enterprise IT news highlights. In a follow-up to the recent Windows updates, and the fact that after Windows updates within a couple weeks, there's usually some fallout stories of issues caused. This one seems to have been caught a little bit late, considering it's the end of April and early May. But Microsoft has now confirmed that the April 2026 security updates are causing failures in third-party backup applications using the PS Mount EREX.sys driver. Software impacted by this includes, but is not limited to, products from Macrium, Acronis, UR Backup Server, and Ninja One Backup running on Windows 11, Windows Server, and Windows 10 devices. Microsoft has updated its support documents to confirm that the April updates include a security hardening change that adds PS Mount EREX.sys to the company's vulnerable driver block list to defend users against attacks targeting a high severity buffer overflow vulnerability, which was listed as CVE 2023 43896, that could allow attackers to escalate privileges or execute arbitrary code. Microsoft also advised those affected by this issue to update to a newer version of their app that uses newer drivers, which includes the required protections. Well, which is all well and good. However, it seemed like they updated their own documentation to include facts about the security hardening in the April updates after the fact. So it's almost like, oh, yeah. Go to the vendors to get an update to their app. And like this was not our fault kind of thing. This should have been done, and you just need to get it updated on the driver. To me, it reads like bad communication. But on impacted systems where the vulnerable driver is blocked by Windows Code Integrity Enforcement, IT administrators and users may observe that backup applications relying on the kernel driver may fail to mount backup image files as virtual drives. That attempting to browse or restore from a backup image may result in errors or timeouts. You may encounter failures followed by error messages, such as the backup has failed because Microsoft VSS has timed out during the snapshot creation, or VSS_E_bad_state. You may also see the event viewer shows code integrity errors, indicating that the driver was blocked from loading, and backup creation may succeed, but image mount operations fail. I already mentioned that Microsoft indicated that you should reach out to the vendors and grab the latest updates for the applications impacted. And they went further and suggested that they do not recommend uninstalling or pausing the update. So it seems like their course of action for customers is simply to push on the vendors to provide an update to their application, which I guess probably puts those vendors in a bit of a bind to quickly operationalize and get updates out, which at the time of this recording, hopefully all those vendors have already released a new version of their backup solutions. From bleepycomputer.com, they reported that Microsoft Defender is detecting legitimate DigiCert root certificates as Trojan Win32/certdigent.a !DHA, resulting in widespread false positive alerts and in some cases removing certificates from Windows. According to a Reddit post about the false positives, the detective certificates include ones ending in 24D43 and D0584. Now, they're much longer, but I'm not going to read those out on the podcast. If you want to check out the full numerical and alphabetical strings for yourself, I'll share that with this episode, and you'll find that at 5bytespodcast.com with episode 438 or in the YouTube description. But Microsoft has reportedly fixed the detections in Security Intelligence Update version 1.449.430.0, and the most recent update, which at the time of recording this was 1.449.431.0. Other reports on Reddit indicated that the fix also restores previously removed certificates on affected systems, which is great. And if you want to get those updates, definition updates for yourself, You can go to Windows Security, Virus and Threat Protection, Protection Updates, and check for updates. After publishing their article, Microsoft confirmed that the false positives were linked to detections for compromised certificates from a recent DigiCert breach. Microsoft recently confirmed that Windows 11 is getting a new modern run dialog with dark mode support and faster performance, and it's available in a new preview build 26300.8346. And to try it for yourself, you'll need to download the Windows 11 build from the new experimental channel. NeoWin.net has reported that the latest non-security update for Windows 11 has introduced a new icon in the printers and scanners section within the settings app. Microsoft is reportedly moving away from legacy printer drivers in favor of Windows Protected Print Mode, or WPP. This mode uses the Windows Modern Print Stack, which offers multiple benefits, including better security, a more consistent printing experience across architectures, and no need to manage print drivers. WPP works with MOPRIA certified printers, and Microsoft now wants all IT admins to use WPP instead of legacy drivers. And to make it easier for everyone to understand their printing architecture, Microsoft is adding a new compatibility indicator to Windows 11. Microsoft has stated that all Windows 11 compatible printers would continue operating without issues, requiring no action from the end user. So hopefully this is not going to be too disruptive of a change. But switching to Windows Protected Print Mode could be a major change for administrators regardless. So Microsoft does have documentation describing all the details about moving to a modern printing stack, including information on printing to OneNote, XPS, legacy drivers, and more. And I'll share a link to the NeoWin.net article, which has a link to this documentation if you'd like to see it for yourself. In an interesting story, NeoWin.net has reported that the NHS in the United Kingdom is working on shutting down nearly all of its public source code repositories over security fears related to AI. Terence Eden, who used to work for the UK government on open standards at GDS and helped publish the source code for the NHS COVID-19 app, claimed that this information was leaked to him by multiple separate sources inside the NHS who are aghast at the decision. Now, I understand them being aghast, but I also kind of understand the stance the NHS is taking with the advent of the likes of Anthropic's Mythos being much talked about, and the severity of the security risk involved in that. It is kind of a risk to leave source code for applications you're dependent on just sitting out there in the web for these crawlers to find. It is a strange new world that we are living in. Tom'sHardware.com has reported that the founder of Pocket OS, which is a SaaS platform that services car rental businesses, has penned a social media post to warn others about the systemic failures of flagship AI and digital services providers. Jer Crane was inspired to write a public response after an AI coding agent deleted his firm's entire production database. The AI agent's misdemeanors were then largely amplified by a cloud infrastructure provider's API wiping all backups after the main database was zapped. This tag team of digital trouble wiped out months of consumer data essential to the firm's and its customers' businesses. In the write-up, it was stated, quote, "Yesterday afternoon, an AI coding agent, Cursor, running Anthropic's flagship cloud Opus 4.6, deleted our production database and all volume level backups in a single API call to Railway, our infrastructure provider. It took 9 seconds." End quote. The AI agent was set to complete a routine task in the Pocket OS staging environment. However, it came up against a barrier and decided entirely on its own initiative to fix the problem by deleting a Railway volume. Thankfully, Pocket OS had a full 3-month-old backup, which was restorable from, so the deletion gaps are all limited just to an interim period. But this is probably as bad as it can get. And certainly Mr. Crane is trying to warn others maybe of being too dependent on these AI solutions and the risks they carry. OpenAI has reportedly missed its internal targets for the number of active ChatGPT users, as well as multiple revenue goals. Because of this, the Wall Street Journal reports that CFO Sarah Friar has expressed worries about whether the firm can afford the billions of dollars of future compute contracts it has taken on. The company is banking on explosive growth to fund all these expenses, with Sam Altman and Fryer saying in a joint statement to the Wall Street Journal, quote, "We are totally aligned on buying as much compute as we can and working hard on it together every day," end quote. Many corporate investors felt that it was on the right track, with the startup raising $122 billion in its latest funding round. However, one analyst said that OpenAI could run out of cash by mid 2027 unless it continues bringing in massive amounts of investments. Even though executives from NVIDIA, Oracle, SoftBank, and many other companies invested in OpenAI and see potential, the market is beginning to doubt them. As soon as the news of OpenAI's shortfall started circulating, MarketWatch reported that firms with heavy involvement in the AI firm saw a drop in their stock prices during pre-market trading. Tom'sHardware.com reported that this included NVIDIA, AMD, Oracle, and CoreWeave. Plus, SoftBank closed at 9.9% lower in the Tokyo Stock Exchange, making it one of the worst performers in the Nikkei 225. Microsoft seems to be the only company that's closely intertwined with OpenAI that hasn't been affected by a drop in stock prices. Interesting blog post by geekyharish.in, it was suggested that the Indian government has successfully transitioned the official email accounts of over 1.2 million central government employees to Zoho Mail. This was also reported by several outlets, including by Zoho themselves. The move was reportedly driven by a need for strengthening digital sovereignty, mitigating cyber risk, and standardizing their digital workplace. So it's been interesting because obviously there's been quite a lot of discussion from European government agencies about potentially moving away from US vendors for providing things like productivity services, email, etc. And it seems like India has already gotten well underway in migrating some of their agencies to Microsoft Office alternatives. The Irish broadcaster RTE recently reported that EU rules on common chargers now applies to laptops. It means that all new laptops sold in the European Union must now support USB-C charging, which, I don't know, in recent experience at least, it seems like most already do. So it seems like vendors kind of got behind the initiative and did start to lean into it well ahead of time. Now, there was a long lead time for manufacturers, which probably did help, as the European Parliament approved the new rules back in 2022, with the European Commission estimating at the time that the move would save about 250 million euros for consumers. The directive also ensures that charging speeds are the same when using compatible chargers. The rules are designed to reduce the environmental footprint associated with the production and disposal of chargers. And I know there was a lot of griping about it's going to stifle innovation when this was announced for mobile phone chargers. But I don't know how anyone else feels about it. I think it's been a godsend. It's amazing, especially when I'm going traveling to conferences and events like I just did for MEM Summit, being able to use the same cable that I use to charge my phone for my laptop. It's awesome. So good move. I probably should have covered this story a little bit earlier when I was talking about OpenAI and Microsoft, but Ars Technica reported recently that OpenAI and Microsoft jointly announced an amended agreement that will allow the company to go beyond Microsoft's Azure and serve all its products to customers across any cloud provider. The announcement clarifies that Microsoft will continue to have a license for OpenAI's IP and models through 2032, and that Azure will remain the primary cloud partner for OpenAI during that time. But Microsoft's license will now be non-exclusive. This will let OpenAI make its models available through other major cloud providers going forward. While OpenAI will continue to make the same 20% revenue share payments to Microsoft under the amended deal, the total payment will now be limited to an unspecified cap and is only guaranteed to run through 2030. Importantly, that revenue share is now independent of OpenAI's technology progress, an apparent reference to the infamous AGI clause in the original partnership that would have scrapped the exclusivity deal if and when OpenAI achieved the hard-to-gauge benchmark of artificial general intelligence, which is something that I remember Sam Altman has multiple times said, it's within X number of months that they're going to achieve it. And the way I interpret this is probably, Microsoft is a major investor, and to get some of their money back, they need OpenAI to be more successful in generating revenue than they currently are. So maybe this non-exclusivity is in the interest of Microsoft to reclaim some of their investment. The Register has reported that GitHub is shifting Copilot from request-based billing to usage-based billing from June 1st of this year. Under usage-based billing, there's a more direct correlation with metered tokens, which are sets of 3 or 4 characters that represent the basic economic unit for selling AI services. Copilot customers consume input tokens, output tokens, and cash tokens, each price based on the model used. And Microsoft converts that to a cost measured in AI credits. And it's been stated, quote, instead of counting premium requests, every Copilot plan will include a monthly allotment of GitHub AI credits, with the option for paid plans to purchase additional usage. Usage will be calculated based on token consumption, including input, output, and cash tokens, using the listed API rates for each model, end quote. Knowing the outcome of this calculation in advance will be difficult. Usage-based billing is non-deterministic, so users can never be sure how much time and how many tokens a model will consume in order to respond to a specific input. Different prompts may involve tools that complicate token consumption calculations. GitHub at least intends to try to give customers a hint of what's coming. They stated they'll introduce a preview bill experience early May, giving users and admins visibility into projected costs before the June 1st transition. So not a whole lot of time before they make the change to have an idea of what that could entail. GitHub subscription rates will remain the same, with Copilot Pro being $10 a month, Pro Plus $39, Business $19 per user per month, and Enterprise at $39 per user per month. At the 0.01 cent GitHub AI credit rate, Copilot Pro subscribers get 1,000 AI credits per month, Pro Plus get 3,900, and once users exhaust the usage allowed under a plan, they can define an overflow budget or just stop using AI until the next monthly billing cycle resets their AI credit balance. Users on annual subscription plans have the option to cancel and receive a prorated refund or to be downgraded to Copilot Free upon subscription expiration, and those plans will not be renewable. Regardless, those riding their annual subscription plans to the bitter end will see prices skyrocket for premium models going forward. WindowsLatest.com reported that during the recent Q1 2026 earnings call by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella confirmed that they are fully focused on winning back customers across all its businesses, including Windows and Xbox. During the earnings call, he mentioned Windows several times, which is notable because Windows rarely gets this kind of attention from Microsoft's top leadership unless the discussion is about enterprise. But how does Microsoft plan to win back consumers as he has suggested, and especially those who use Windows but have grown apart in recent years? Well, according to Satya Nadella, Microsoft plans to focus on core users and double down on the foundational work to increase engagement across Windows, Microsoft Edge, Bing, and Xbox. Stating, quote, when it comes to our consumer business, we are doing the foundational work required to win back fans and strengthen engagement across Windows, Xbox, Bing, and Edge. In the near term, we are focused on fundamentals, prioritizing quality, and serving our core users better. He went on to say, you see this in the work underway across our consumer products. With Windows, we recently announced performance improvements for lower memory devices, streamlined the Windows Update experience, and brought back focus to core features and fundamentals that matter most to our customers, end quote. During the earnings call, Nadella added that Windows now has 1.6 billion monthly active devices, which likely includes PCs running Windows 10 and older versions, so it's not unique just to Windows 11. Microsoft is actually committed to delivering major improvements in 2026, And this has been indicated outside of that earnings call. And I've reported on multiple episodes of the podcast about changes internally within Microsoft to try and improve the quality. So hopefully this is not just, talk. In a quick hit story, Microsoft recently shared that Windows 365 Frontline is getting a name change to Windows 365 Flex. Also, probably more significant is the fact that Azure Virtual Desktop Hybrid is now in public preview. So that'll be interesting off the back of the investments and changes to the Azure local stack to now focus on hybrid and to maybe get a more complete overall story for Azure Virtual Desktop going forward. I saw an interesting LinkedIn post recently from Tom Jorian, who said that Microsoft Edge loads all passwords saved into memory in clear text, even if you're not using them, which is really concerning. He said that when you save passwords in Edge, the browser decrypts every credential at startup and keeps them resident in process memory. And this happens even if you never visit a site that uses those credentials. And at the same time, Edge requires you to re-authenticate before showing those same passwords in the Password Manager UI, yet the browser process already has them in plain text. Edge appears to be the only Chromium-based browser, according to Tom, that behaves this way. And by contrast, he says that Chrome uses a design that makes it far harder for attackers to extract saved passwords by simply reading process memory. It decrypts credentials only when needed instead of keeping all passwords in memory at all times. So I don't think I need to talk about what the risks are of having all saved memories basically sitting in memory constantly in plain text. But this is, really concerning. I'd imagine most enterprises are not allowing the password save functionality within the browser. And certainly it probably gives more credence to using an actual password manager outside of the built-in browser functionality. But now this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. Just one this week. I saw blog posts and videos shared by Microsoft on how to stage rollouts in rings with Intune deployments to gradually deploy, pause, or cancel any deployment in flight. And auto trust every app that you push using App Control for Business with managed installers, which also works with Autopilot as you provision new devices, now with up to 25 apps. And it shows how you could keep your fleet of apps up to date automatically as vendors publish new versions through the Enterprise App Catalog or trigger updates on demand from the Guided Upgrade Supersedence report. Of course, mileage may vary on success, I would say, with some of these features, but it's interesting to see maybe the complete story and multiple different videos to kind of help you on that journey if that's something that interests you. I saw they also seem to publish a new blog post on how MSIX installer, as they refer to it as a non-install really, functions. So it seems like they're maybe getting back to some basics on explaining how different features within their product stack actually work, which is probably required. So that's kind of cool to see. So sorry if this is a longer episode. The release cadence for the podcast is trying to get back in line now with what it was before I had to travel for work and vacation. And I know some people hate when I talk about personal stuff on this. They just want me to report the news. But it's been a really terrible week for me for multiple reasons. But one of them being that my dog passed away, sadly, on the 30th of April. And I still have an awful cloud hanging over me because of that loss. And because she's on my mind so much, I'd just like to say, I dedicate this episode to her. But that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening.